guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. Hopefully y'all are doing well. Now, I haven't been in the reading mood recently, and I kind of wanted to make a video, and I was like, man, what should I read? I read like a couple more chapters of Stephen King's It. Wasn't feeling, I'm gonna read it, just not now, not really now. Again, I just stopped reading, took a little break, but I was like, I want to make a video, so what can I read for everybody? And on my shelf, I saw this great book here, Jaws. Yeah. Yep. Jaws is my all-time favorite movie. I love it. It's fantastic. It's amazing. Also, I apologize how bright everything is. Sorry for the cut, guys. My room's a mess. I apologize. Anyway, as I was saying, my all-time favorite movie. I never knew it was loosely based off of a book. I never knew that. Until I was a senior in high school and we had to do a book project. And it had to be a book published before like 1990 something, I think. Let's see. When was this book published? 1974. I think it was like something. The book had to be published before 1985. Something like that. And I was like, wow, this is the very first project where I get to pick what book, or at least from what I can remember, what book that I could do it on. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a Jaws book. I didn't know that. When was it published? And anyway, I read it for the first time in high school. And I was like, it's so different. It's like the same, but so different. It's just different. I don't know if you haven't watched this movie, go watch it. Go watch it. What's wrong with you? How have you not seen Jaws? For shame. Anyway, I thought I would read a chapter. I'm kind of in a reading mood right now. It's late at night. It's almost midnight, and I was like, I'm not really tired. I kind of want to make another video. I'll just read chapter or two of Jaws. Alright. I am not going to read the prologue. It's just it's an introduction to the 30th anniversary edition, pretty much. You know what? Let's read it. Why not? Okay. Jaws was the offspring of a childhood passion. Like millions of other children, I developed early on a fascination with sharks. Because I spent my summers on Nantucket, an island 30 miles out in the Atlantic, I was able to indulge my passion on a regular and continuing basis. In the 1940s and 50s, the waters around Nantucket were rich in wildlife, including sharks of many species, sand sharks, blue sharks, makos, and though I didn't know it at the time, great white sharks. When my father, my brother, and I would go fishing on windless days, we'd see the dorsal and tail fins of sharks crisscrossing the oil calm surface. To me, they spoke of the unknown and the mysterious, of invisible danger and mindless savagery. Throughout my teens and early 20s, I read most of the accessible literature on sharks. There wasn't much, and in 1964, I read an item in the newspaper about a fisherman who harpooned a 4,500-pound great white shark off Long Island. That's a big shark. Maybe. I I remember thinking at the time, Lord, what would happen if one of those monsters came into a resort community and wouldn't go away? I tucked the item into my wallet and, for the long time being, forgot about it. Then, in 1971, a documentary feature film called Blue Water, White Death was released. It told the story of an expedition led by Peter Gimble, a department store heir and professional adventurer, to find and film a great white shark. Blue Water was then, and in my opinion remains today, the finest film ever made about sharks. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the list then to watch. I love sharks. In the same year, Peter, I don't even know how to say his last name, Matheson's wonderful book about the expedition Blue Meridian was published, and the two events not only affirmed in bronze my fascination with sharks, but also set storytelling wheels around tuning in my brain. I had no interest in writing a one-note horror story. Shark eats people. I concentrated on the question of what would actually happen if a huge predator laid siege to a resort community. The first reaction of the authorities, I thought, would be to try to cover up the problem in hopes that it would go away. I would have to agree. I think if that happened in today's world, 5 people getting it eaten in the same spot, 3 days from each other, they'd probably be like, "Oh, guys, that wasn't a shark, trust." Where was I? I thought some resort communities earn 80 or 90% of their annual income during the 3 months of summer, and a shark attack panic could destroy a summer's trade. Of course, by the time of the second or third fatal attack, the cover-up would be impossible to sustain. Who would be the authorities? A police chief, probably, and wouldn't it be interesting if he was a man who feared and hated the water? Who would his wife be? Would they have children? Wouldn't they seek help from an authority on sharks? A marine biologist, say, whose ambition would be to study the shark, not to kill it? And how would the town react to the outsider? All these questions and 10,000 more assailed me as I began to tell the story to myself. Soon the story began to tell itself, and once in a while the characters would run away from me, dashing off in different directions. I would rein them in and talk to them and determine whether or not their destinations were appropriate. At the time I was writing Jaws, the environmental movement we know today didn't exist. Yes, there was a constituency building to save whales. Yes, people were aware that pollution of air and water was a problem. Yes, pesticides and other toxins were being recognized as dangerous to birds and fish, but to the general population, the oceans remained as they had always have been. Eternal, invulnerable, capable of consuming and rendering harmless whatever mankind threw at or in them. As for sharks, well, only a handful of people on the planet knew anything about sharks. To most people, and especially to fishermen and divers, the hoary canard about sharks was gospel. The only good shark is a dead shark. Side note, if I mispronounce a word, don't come after me, okay? But I usually read in my head. I prided myself on knowing more about sharks than the general populace, but I succumbed nevertheless to the anecdotal evidence and accepted it or them, for the anecdotes were legion, as truth. Did sharks attack boats? Of course they did. Did they attack humans? You bet. I had read about a dozen of shark attacks. Did they stay in one area, killing and killing again until either they were caught and killed or they finished off the food supply? Darn right. Remember the shark that went up a New Jersey river in 1916 and killed 4 people? Time and again, I confidently assured interviewers that every single incident of shark behavior described in Jaws, the book, remember not the movie, had actually happened. Not all at once, not by the same shark, but over the years and in some sea somewhere in the world. I was correct too. Every episode described in the book had happened, just not for the reasons I had posited, nor with the results I had imagined. It would be years before I would learn the biological and behavioral truths about sharks in general and great whites in particular. I learned them slowly firsthand, often in company with scientists or fishermen or divers, and each discovery was fascinating, albeit humbling. One of the first lessons I learned was that sharks not only don't seek out and attack human beings, they avoid humans whenever possible. We are, after all, large, noisy, ugly aliens that, for all a shark knows, may pose mortal danger and bite them very rarely. They don't even like the taste of us, and great whites often spit humans out because they're too bony and fat-free. Compared to seals, that is. That shark is not spitting me out. He's gonna have a lot to chew on. He's gonna be like, dang, this boy, bet. With knowledge accumulated from dozens of expeditions and hundreds of divers and countless encounters with sharks of many kinds came the realization that I can never write Jaws today. I can never demonize an animal, especially not an animal that is much older and much more successful in its habitat than man is, has been, or ever will be an animal that is vitally necessary for the balance of nature in the sea, and an animal that we may, if we don't change our destructive behaviors, extinguish from the face of the earth. He might regret making Jaws, but I don't regret him making Jaws. Like I said, favorite movie ever. You have to watch it if you haven't. As Jaws was being readied for publication, my ambitions for it were modest, to say the least. I knew it couldn't possibly be commercially successful. For one thing, it was a first novel, and with rare exceptions like Gone with the Wind, first novels tended to languish unread on bookstore shelves. For another, it was the first novel about a fish, and I couldn't think of any novels about fish that achieved critical or commercial success. Furthermore, I knew for certain that no one would ever make a movie from the book because it was impossible to catch and train a great white shark, and movie-making technology was nowhere near good enough to create a believable model or mechanical version. The book was published in the spring of 1974 to generally favorable reviews. A few readers and reviewers went delightfully overboard. Fidel Castro told an interviewer for National Public Radio that Jaws, Tiburon, in its Spanish editions, was a marvelous metaphor about the corruption of capitalism. Other critics described it as an allegory about Watergate and a classic story of male bonding. Not long after publication, Jaws landed on the hardcover bestseller list of New York Times and took up residence there for 44 weeks. It's a long time. Never, however, did it make it to number one. A pesky bug about a rabbit watership down refused to budge from the top spot. I've never heard of that. The story in paperback was entirely different. It was number one for months on... Oh, sorry, my hand's cramping. It was number one for months on lists all over the world. In the United States alone, it sold more than 9 million copies, but that success had to do it in part with the shooting, preparation, and release of the movie, with brilliant cross-promotion by the paperback publisher and the movie company with a phenomenal good luck. I've derived great gratification over the years hearing from readers that Jaws was the first grown-up book they had read and that it taught them reading could be fun. That Jaws sparked an interest that led them to careers in marine biology. I've heard from a couple of college professors that they attribute the increase in graduate students in marine science in general and the study of shark in particular directly to the book and the movie. Or that Jaws taught them that sharks are so cool they wanted to become oh my gosh, don't judge me, conservationists. Every year, more than 1,000 youngsters who weren't alive when the book was published or the movie released write to tell me how worried they are about the decline in shark populations around the world and to ask me how they can help save these awesome animals that they discovered in Jaws. Jaws has also given me a second career. For the past decade or so, I've been working in marine conservation pretty much full-time, though I still find diving with big critters in remote local feels irresistible, and I'll abandon almost anything for the chance to visit with great white sharks under the water. I don't know how much I can accomplish. I don't know how much anyone can accomplish, but I do know that after all I've received from sharks, I'd feel like an ingrate if I didn't give something back. This is the last page for the prologue. In 1973, before the book was published, I met with Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown, the producers for whom Universal Pictures had bought the movie rights to Jaws. Though I had no way of knowing at the time, I was enormously lucky to be in their hands. Later, we would all find ourselves lucky to be in the hands of a 26-year-old genius named Steven Spielberg, but nobody had any way of anticipating that at the time. Not only were Richard and David charming, gracious, and brilliant with decades of movie business savvy and experience, but they also were in the habit of violating two of Hollywood's most time-honored cliches. They didn't lie, and they did return phone calls. I had never written a screenplay, but I had asked for and been given permission to write the first couple of drafts of Jaws. At our first meeting, after an exchange of pleasantries, Richard Zanuck said to me, I'm paraphrasing here, this picture is going to be an A to Z adventure story, a straight line, so we want you to take out all the romance stuff, all the mafia stuff, all the stuff that'll just be distracting. You who have never read Jaws, you who have only seen the movie, I can see you frowning. I can hear you saying to yourself, romance? Mafia? What's he talking about? Where's all that stuff? Read on, please, and discover for yourselves. And if you have seen the movie, that's what I'm saying. The book is like, for the most part, it's the same, but it is very different in places, especially with the governor. Spoilers. I'm not even saying anything about the governor, but the governor, Brody's wife, Hooper. You're not the man I thought you were, Hooper. You're not the man I thought you were. Okay. How about we read chapter 1, and I think we'll call it. We're already almost to 20 minutes. Oh my gosh, it's flipped. Did you see that? I think that was a bug. Is there a bug flying around? Guys, again, don't mind the mess in the room, okay? I know. Don't even look at it. It's so weird being off center. I'm sorry. Okay. Chapter 1. The big Uno. 1. Alright. The great fish moves silently through the night water, propelled by short sweeps of its crescent tail. The mouth was open just enough to permit a rush of water over the gills. There was a little other motion, an occasional correction of the apparently aimless course by the slight raising or lowering of the pectoral fin, as a bird changes direction by dipping one wing and lifting the other. The eyes were sightless and the black, and the other sense transmitted nothing extraordinary to the small, primitive brain. Just call the shark dumb. The fish might have been asleep, save for the movement dictated by countless millions of years of instinctive continuity, lacking the flotation bladder common to other fish and the fluttering flaps to push oxygen-bearing water through its gills. It survived only by moving forward. Once stopped, it would sink to the bottom and die of anoxia. The land seemed almost as dark as the water, for there was no moon. All that separated sea from shore was a long, straight stretch of beach so white that it shone. From a house behind the grass-splotched dunes, lights cast yellow glimmers on the sand. The front door to the house opened, and a man and a woman stepped out onto the wooden porch. Here is the first difference. They stood for a moment staring at the sea, embracing quickly, and scampered down the few steps onto the sand. The man was drunk, and he stumbled on the bottom step. The woman laughed and took his hand, and together they ran into the beach. "First a swim," said the woman, "to clear your head." "Forget my head," said the man. Giggling, he fell backward onto the sand, pulling the woman down with him. They fumbled with each other's clothing, twined limbs around limbs, and thrashed with urgent ardor on the cold sand. Afterward, the man lay back and closed his eyes. The woman looked at him and smiled. "Now how about that swim?" she said. "You go ahead, I'll wait for you here." The woman rose and walked to where the gentle surf washed over her ankles. The water was colder than the night air, for it was only mid-June. The woman called back, "You're sure you don't want to come?" But there was no answer from the sleeping man. She backed up a few steps, then ran at the water. At first, her strides were long and graceful, but then a small wave crashed into her knees. She faltered, regained her footing, and flung herself over the next waist-high wave. The water was only up to her hips, so she stood, pushed the hair out of her eyes, and continued walking until the water covered her shoulders. There she began to swim, with the jerky head above water stroke of the untutored. 100 yards offshore, the fish sensed a change in the sea's rhythm. It did not see the woman, nor yet did it smell her. Running within the length of its body were a series of thin canals filled with mucus and dotted with nerve endings, and these nerves detected vibrations and signaled the brain. The fish turned towards the shore. The woman continued to swim away from the beach, stopping now and then to check her position by the lights shining from the house. The tide was slack, so she had not moved up or down the beach, but she was tiring, so she rested for a moment, treading water, and then started for shore. The vibrations were stronger now, and the fish recognized prey. The sweeps of its tail quickened, thrusting the giant body forward with a speed that agitated the tiny phosphorescent animals in the water and caused them to glow, casting a mantle of sparks over the fish. The fish closed on the woman and hurtled past 12 feet to the side and 6 feet below the surface. The woman felt only a wave of pressure that seemed to lift her up in the water and ease her down again. She stopped swimming and held her breath, feeling nothing further. She resumed her lurching stroke. The fish smelled her now, and the vibrations, erratic and sharp, signaled distress. The fish began to circle close to the surface. Its dorsal fin broke the water, and its tail, thrashing back and forth, cut the glassy surface with a hiss. A series of tremors shook its body. For the first time, the woman felt fear, though she did not know why. Adrenaline shot through her trunk and her limbs, generating a tingling heat and urging her to swim faster. She guessed that she was 50 yards from shore. She could see the line of white foam where the waves broke on the beach. She saw the lights in the house, and for a comforting moment she thought she saw someone pass by one of the windows. The fish was about 40 feet away from the woman, off to the side, and when it turned suddenly to the left, dropped entirely below the surface and, with 2 quick thrusts of its tail, was upon her. At first, the woman thought she had snagged her leg on a rock or a piece of floating wood. There was no initial pain, only one violent tug on her right leg. She reached down and touched her foot, treading water with her left leg to keep her head up, feeling in the blackness with her left hand. She could not find her foot. She reached higher on her leg, and then she was overcome by a rush of nausea and dizziness. Her groping fingers had found a nub of bone and tattered flesh. She knew that warm, pulsing flow over her fingers in the chill water was her own blood. I would be freaking out. Obviously, I would if I felt a tug on my leg, and I went to feel and there was nothing there, brother, I am immediately dying. I'm dying right there on the spot. Like my heart will stop. I'm sorry. Got caught off guard. Pain and panic struck together. The woman threw her head back and screamed a guttural cry of terror. The fish had moved away. It swallowed the woman's limb without chewing, Bones and meat passed down the massive gullet in a single spasm. Now the fish turned again, homing on the stream of blood rushing from the woman's femoral artery. I thought it said bacon. A beacon as clear as true as a lighthouse on a cloudless night. This time the fish attacked from below. It hurled up under the woman, jaws agape. The great conical head struck her like a locomotive, knocking her up out of the water. The jaws snapped shut around her torso, crushing bones and flesh and organs in a jelly. The fish, with the woman's body in its mouth, smashed down on the water with a thunderous splash, spewing foam and blood and phosphorescence in a gaudy shower. Below the surface, the fish took its head from side to side, its serrated triangular teeth sawing through what little sinew still resisted. The corpse fell apart. The fish swallowed, then turned to continue feeding. Its brain still registered the signals of nearby prey. The water was laced with blood and shreds of flesh, and the fish could not sort signal from substance. It cut back and forth through the dissipating cloud of blood, opening and closing its mouth, sensing for a random morsel. But by now, most of the pieces of the corpse had dispersed. A few sank slowly, coming to rest on the sandy bottom, where they moved lazily in the current. A few drifted away just below the surface, floating in the surge that ended in the surf. There's a little break in the chapter. Oh my gosh. So much more brutal in the book. You know, the movie. Okay, the movie was pretty brutal too, because you know she's like getting dragged and she hits the thing, and then it's like, oh help me, and then she's boom underwater, and that's it. This is like, oh that shark bit her, and you know, like shoo, crazy. Okay. Anyway, I think there's only like a page or something. That's like 2.5 pages. The man awoke, shivering in the early morning cold. His mouth was sticky and dry, and his awakening belch tasted of bourbon and corn. The sun had not yet risen, but a line of pink on the eastern horizon told him that daybreak was near. The stars still hung faintly in the lightening sky. The man stood and began to dress. He was annoyed that the woman had not woken him when she went back to the house, and he found it curious that she had left her clothes on the beach. He picked them up and walked to the house. He tiptoed across the porch and gently opened the screen door, remembering that it screeched when yanked. The living room was dark and empty, littered with half-empty glasses, ashtrays, and dirty plates. He walked across the living room, turned right down a hall past two closed doors. The door to the room he shared with the woman was open, and a bedside light was on. Both beds were made. He tossed the woman's clothes on one of the beds, then returned to the living room and switched on a light. Both couches were empty. There were 2 more bedrooms in the house. The owners lived in one. 2 other house guests occupied the other. As quietly as possible, the man opened the door to the first bedroom. There were 2 beds, each obviously containing only one person. He closed the door and moved to the next room. The host and hostess were asleep on each side of a king-size bed. The man closed the door and went back to his room to find his watch. It was nearly 5. He sat on one bed and stared at the bundle of clothes on the other. He was certain the woman wasn't in the house. There had been no other guests for dinner, so unless she had met someone on the beach while he slept, she couldn't have gone off with anyone. And even if she had, he thought, she probably would have taken at least some of her clothes. Only then did he permit his mind to consider the possibility of an accident. Very quickly, the possibility became a certainty. He returned to the host's bedroom, hesitated for a moment beside the bed, and then softly placed his hand on her shoulder. "Jack," he said, patting the shoulder. "Hey, Jack." The man sighed and opened his eyes. "What?" "It's me, Tom. I hate like hell to wake you up, but I think we may have a problem." "What problem? Have you seen Chrissy?" "What do you mean, have I seen Chrissy? She's with you." "No, she isn't. I mean, I can't find her. Jack sat up and turned on the light. His wife stirred and covered her head with a sheet. Jack looked at his watch. Jesus Christ, it's 5 in the morning, and you can't find your date. I know, said Tom. I'm sorry. Do you remember when you saw her last? Sure, I remember. She said you were going for a swim, and you both went out to the porch. When did you see her last? On the beach, and I fell asleep. You mean she didn't come back? Not that I saw. At least not before we went to bed, and that was around 1. I found her clothes. Where? On the beach? Yes. You looked in the living room? Tom nodded. And in Henkel's room. The Henkel's room? Tom blushed. I haven't known her that long. For all I know, she could be a little weird. So could the Henkels. I mean, I'm not suggesting anything. I just wanted to check the whole house before I woke you up. So, what do you think? What I'm beginning to think, said Tom, is that maybe she had an accident. Maybe she drowned. Jack looked at him for a moment, then glanced again at his watch. I don't know what time the police in this town go to work, he said, but I guess this is as good as a time. This is as good a time as any to find out. And that is the end of chapter 1. So, what a first chapter. I think it's crazy because when you think about it, I just think it's such a brutal scene. You know, poor Chrissy getting absolutely eaten by that great white shark. But I like how Peter wrote how, like, for the shark, you know, it's not like he knows it's a human. He just knows it's prey. He senses. It senses the vibrations. I say he because I call, like, the shark is Bruce in my mind. I think of Bruce. You know, Bruce wasn't like, oh yay, defenseless woman, let's eat her, you know. He was like, vibrations. Okay, let me at it. You know, I'm hungry, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, it's just brutal. I feel for Chrissy. It's very sad to read about. But I love the way he wrote it. It's like, oh, you know it's coming. You know she's already too far from the beach. You're just like, oh, she going. It's really sad. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Also, real quick, I wanted to see if this even sounded like anything. I think it's like something that goes in the dryer. Also, if I'm looking straight, I'm watching myself. It feels awkward to stare at you. Sometimes I feel like it's awkward when we're just locking eyes, just watching each other, you know. Well, hopefully you're not. Hopefully you're so relaxed by that first gruesome chapter that you're just like out of this world and gone to sleep. Not like that. Does this sound good? Y'all let me know. Do you like this? Let's see. I went and saw Hamilton play, not recently, but it came off. Hamilton. I was seeing if it would, hold on, I want to see if this will. My face is too big to be doing that. Oh, come on. Oh, whatever, I don't think it, anyway. ASMRs I watch just posted their video. Taco Bell. Hot, if you're wondering. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe if maybe I'll read like chapter 2 or something. I love Jaws, just reading it and watching it. You know what, I might go to sleep with that movie on tonight, I'm not even gonna lie. I might have to. Anyway, again, for the last time, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed, and I cannot wait until the next video. But until then, y'all take care, get some rest, and just, you know, have fun with this life. You know, you only get one, so if you've been planning on doing something, just get out there and do it. If you you don't need me to tell you this. You don't need me. Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, guys. Good night. Especially you in the back. Good night to you. Yeah, I'm talking about you.